It's been called disgusting, degrading, predatory, and above all, ugly. Our society censors it, mocks it, belittles it, and slices away parts of it. But what if it's actually beautiful? Join the Badgers tonight as we discuss the beauty of male sexuality with special guest, porn actress Mercedes. As always, the show will be available for download at our website at honeybadgerbrigade.com.
Like a furry torpedo to the jugular. This is Honey Badger Radio, radio with bite.
Hello and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. Tonight's episode is The Beauty of Male Sexuality with special guest, porn actress Mercedes Carrera. Say hi, Carrera. Sorry, Mercedes.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. It's good to have you. And before we get into the topic, I'd like to just address some of the criticisms we've been seeing in our comment section about talking to people in the sex industry. Personally, my position is that a fair and equitable transaction that's above board and everybody knows what's going on is a significantly better situation for men to be in than the kind of stuff that we're seeing coming out of the family courts or even out of just relationships with women in bars or wherever, where a woman comes to the relationship, to having sex, with a transactional attitude. In other words, she expects to have sex in exchange for something, but from her partner, she expects a companionate attitude towards sex. So in other words, she's saying, I'm having sex to get something. You should be having sex with me to create a sense of affection and love for me. And I think that is the greater dishonesty and the greater damage to men, personally. And the other point I wanted to make is if men have a greater drive for sexuality as opposed to women, then in my opinion, the best way to deal with this is through a very honest and open contract between sex workers and their clients, and that protects both sides rather than what's occurring now, which seems to be even very exploitative of the male sexuality. So that's my position on this particular contentious topic, and I think that's possibly the best approach to take it, at least in my opinion. And I also want to give a shout out to the Canadian Association for Equality, which is holding a fundraiser. CAFE needs $25,000 by year end to ensure its ability to continue to provide services to men and boys through the Centre for Men and Families. The centre is the only one of its kind in Canada, and since its focus is on helping men and boys, it receives almost no corporate or government resources for its operation and relies on donations by people like you, the listeners to this particular show. You can make a donation at www.equalitycanada.com. From now till the 21st of December, a donor has promised to match every dollar fundraised up to $10,000, so please donate. CAFE has hosted public awareness events on the crisis in boys' education, issues of suicide, fatherhood, and other topics critical to men's issues awareness. It has also become Canada's very first charity with a men's issues focus. So if you want a good cause to donate to this holiday season, CAFE is it. Men and boys are the most underserved group when it comes to charity, so you really matter as a donor. Once again, you can make your donations to www.equalitycanada.com. All right, and I'd like to now just get into the show. Usually we start by introing our panelists. Of course, we have quite a few. This is definitely a large group of panelists today. So first of all, my name is Allison Tiemann. I am your host tonight and General Traffic Director. I have written on men's issues for a very long time, and I'm currently exploring men's issues in a dramatic form in a web comic called Xenospora that starts with an X, Xenospora. And I also did the art for this week with coloring by Ku. But I'm going to hand over to Rachel. Do a brief intro of yourself, Rachel, there.
Hi, I'm Rachel Edwards. Wow, we're filled to the brim tonight. It's just so many. Okay, and anyway, I'm a writer for Honey Badger Radio, a host of Honey Badger Radio, and I do a blog at nuttynerdist.tumblr.com, as well as for a gaming site known as 20ounce.com. That's 20oz.com, and I'll pass it on to you lovely individuals.
Crystal, come on board.
Hi. So I'm Crystal, and you can find me on Twitter. It's Kristal D Garcia, and that's me on Twitter. And then you can get connected with me. I do vlogs, and I blog. I have a petition. There's a petition on there with Jade Davis that we put together for having the UN men in the United Nations, because we have a UN women, and so it's a petition to have a UN men as well. And I'm currently writing Loving and Celebrating Men, the book.
All right, thank you, Crystal. Come on down, Hannah.
Hi, I'm Hannah Wallen. I write a little bit all over the place, but including the Honey Badger Brigade blog, but my main blog is breakingtheglasses.blogspot.com. You can also find my vlog, Breaking the Glasses, on YouTube.
All right, thank you, Hannah. And Gemma, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hey, my name is Gemma Morgan. I'm a video contributor for stealthybox.com. It's a PlayStation-centered site, and I do a web series on YouTube called This Side Up, which deals with the daily PlayStation news. And you can find me on Twitter at Shulumu.
All right, Karen. You need no introduction, but give us one.
Oh, stop. I'm Karen Strawn. I blog under the name Girl Writes What, and I have a YouTube channel under that name or my real name. Either one, you'll be able to find me. And I've been talking about masculinity, men's issues, anti-feminism for about 4 years now. So, yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Karen. Oop. And Brian. Brian, come on board.
Yes. Hi, my name is Brian Martinez. I am a comic artist. I have a website called Good Guy Comics. It is a personal tale of romance from a male perspective. It is currently very early in its run. I also host the Nerdcast, or I have the last couple times. Yeah, that's a bit about me. You can find me on Twitter at Zanamaru, Zanamaru.
All right, thank you, Brian. Mike, saving the best for last.
Hello, I would like to second the motion regarding sex as an industry, even as an art. I think honesty is important wherever possible, and sexiness is important wherever possible. Hi, I'm Mike. I'm a YouTuber under the name of Dr. Random McCam, I'm one sexy fucker.
Okay, and the final panelist is Censor Duck. Censor Duck comes out whenever somebody jumps the queue or says the word right.
And that duck is going to die. It's going to die soon.
Yes, and it's
right.
Censor Duck is also Karen's nemesis. So there you go. All right, let's, okay, Crystal, I'm going to pull you on to start asking some of your questions for the guest. Or actually, you know what? Mercedes, come on, say hi again.
Hi, I'm Mercedes Carrera. Thanks for having me on. I'm an adult film performer, aka I do porn for a living. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. So thanks for having me.
Well, we're definitely happy to have you. And Crystal has graciously created a series of questions that I'm sure she's eager to ask. Crystal.
Yeah, first, it's so great to have you here. We had a couple of exchanges, and I just really love what you have to say and where you're coming from. So first question is, can you tell us what brought you into deciding to be an adult star?
Sure. Well, first, thank you. Yes, I've enjoyed interacting with you too. And I got into I actually literally just kind of ended up in the adult industry. And what I mean by that is if you told me 10 years ago I was going to be in the adult film industry, I would have said you were crazy. But I ended up working in film production. I live in Southern California. I know a lot of people who've worked in both mainstream as well as adult industries. And I had worked somewhat like as a model and an actress, and I kind of dabbled in that for years. So about half a year ago, and I had also worked as an escort. So I had worked as a sex worker years back. Yeah, I was in it for like maybe 6-9 months, something like that, and I enjoyed it. And we were talking earlier, I worked as a tantrika for a while too. So somebody said, hey, you want to be in this, you want to do this porn movie, and I really kind of had it as a bucket list type thing. I thought, cool, I'll go do a porn movie and it'll be fun, and someday I'll look back on it and say that was a fun experience. And I ended up really enjoying it and liking it. And there's actually a huge niche. I mean, I'm in my 30s. And the Latina MILF genre has its own kind of market, and there really aren't that many performers in it. So I fell into it, and then all of a sudden I got offers to work every single day for like 2.5 months straight. Yeah, so I just kept doing it. Yeah, and it just kind of worked out for me. It totally worked. So yep, that's the story.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I think Allison has a question for you related to this.
I actually have a question for something you brought up. You said that you worked as an escort and you enjoyed it. Could you sort of expand on that? What did you enjoy about it?
Yeah, it was, I mean, that was another thing I kind of fell into, and it wasn't even planned, but I knew some people who worked in quote unquote corporate entertaining. So that's what it was. And what I found in my experience doing it was that I think I'm really ultimately a helper at heart. Like that's kind of, I want to fix things and I want things to be better for people and things like that. And so I naturally fell into the role of a helper in that sense. And then and I know we'll talk about it in the program, but a lot of my compassion for men comes from that period of my life, because what I found in my clients at that time was how difficult it was for many of them to express their sexuality in a healthy way. Many were married and they found that their wives disparaged their sexuality. Some were just single men who needed an outlet. And I worked in a tier of it where these were educated professional men. So, and I was treated very well. I mean, if anything, it was an amazing experience, and it really taught me a lot of compassion.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that as well. So it's more like you're a nurturer, so it fed kind of your nurturing type of, yeah.
Yeah, I just had a quick comment to that. Last week we had a guest on named Josh Blaine, and he mentioned how all of these these very, very attractive corporate women had sort of an attitude of contempt towards him, and they were all looking for their big wig to marry, and I guess disappoint utterly in the sack. Not that disappoint him, not that he okay, anyway, go ahead, Karen.
My experience with guys is quite similar to yours. I've never been a sex worker, but I have always sort of been very open to casual relationships with, like the guy who has strabismus and who never gets laid, really, essentially. I was open to having sex with a guy like that if we could connect on a human level, on a personal level. And one of the things that really struck me was that a lot of the guys that I was with, it was sort of like they would come over and you'd have sex, and then there would be half an hour of like really intense, just human to human talking about their issues and then bearing their souls and all of that in this kind of place where they felt safe to do that. And then there would be another round of sex, and then they would go and they would feel like they'd been validated as a human being. And this seems to be the pattern of maybe I should have been a sex worker. It's the pattern that I've had with all of these men that I've dated, is that it's sort of sex and therapy at the same time. Any of these short-term relationships that I've had, and that
sounds like natural tantrika work you did there.
Yeah, they really are so starved. Not even necessarily, because I don't even know if they continue to come back for the sex. It wasn't for the sex. It was for the connection, the companionships, and the being able to open up and talk about themselves and be vulnerable and expose, all of their, whatever it was, insecurities or their problems or whatever. And that really, I think for a lot of men, they really, and my boyfriend was the same way. He says he can't really connect emotionally to a woman unless he's sexual with her. And I think that some men are like that there is some kind of shortcut when there's sex involved that allows all of that stuff to just spill out, all of the, the deepest, darkest parts of a man's soul to just be able to spill out, because sex is when he's vulnerable. I mean, and a lot of people think that in sex women are vulnerable, but they're not. I don't think they are. I think it's men who are most vulnerable when they're having sex.
Yeah. And Mercedes, go ahead.
Well, and I think that that's an excellent point, because what I noticed working as an escort and then later as a tantrika was exactly that, where the reason that men search out sex, and it's interesting, in this society, men are shamed for it, but what they're actually seeking out is the opportunity to be raw and bare and open and emotionally connected. Now, the irony is that in this modern society, women will tell men, well, I need you to be open and bare and emotionally connected. And he's going, I'm trying with you. Well, no, don't do it sexually. How dare you? You're a pig. So it's a mixed message. And then women are surprised that there are gender relation issues in their relationships. I mean, this isn't really rocket science. And in Tantra, it's well understood that this is fascinating, because it's an ancient system created by women that was never even written down. It actually wasn't until the monks got a hold of it that they wrote it down and turned it into a system. So yoga came from the methods of the tantrikas. The male monks came to the tantrikas and said, teach us your ways. And the women said, oh, you can't learn our ways. Your spines are not flexible enough, and you don't have the energy flow necessary to hold this energy. And the men said, but what can we do? So they had brought these scrolls to these tantrikas to write out their methods. And instead, the tantrikas drew out pictures of the exercises they wanted the men to do so that they could become flexible. That system became yoga. And what did the men do? They got the system back, and they wanted to do such a good job at it that they made it competitive. So the yoga that you see today, the reason women are so adept at it naturally is because it was a system that was designed by women for women, and then the men adapted it. And that's a story directly from my Tantra teacher, who went and lived in China and Tibet and studied with some of the greats. So that, if we understand that as women in society, and we know that we are the empowered ones, we are almost the purveyors of this grace. And unfortunately, in Western society, a lot of women have lost that. They don't understand that they're truly the power source through which men are able to connect to their own beauty, their own grace, and their own consciousness. Men want to connect to that because men have this. They bring the counterbalance. And when women forget this about men and lose that yin-yang understanding of it, we also lose our grace. It's a cooperative system.
Well, it becomes like a whole thing with resentment, and like this is the entire thing with the paradigm that's out there now of male oppressors and female oppressed. Mm-hmm. It completely disregards women's power, particularly women's sexual power, their power to. I think it was Warren Farrell who said to me, if women all of a sudden just decided that what they wanted most in a man was a man who could walk on his hands, guess how many, gyms would be offering classes to men to learn how to walk on their hands. It's just, women have this enormous power, and they absolutely do not want to admit it. They want to call that power and oppression against them. They want to call that power that they have over men, the oppressive male gaze and all kind, and it's a subordination of them, of women. And
I think ultimately, part of creating that power is actually shaming male sexuality, because when you shame men, they have a greater need for approval, and where are they going to get where are they going to get that approval from? But I wanted to just sort of segue, but Crystal does have quite a few questions, so let's move on to the next question. Crystal,
Okay.
go ahead.
Sure. Okay, so Mercedes, how do you feel male sexuality is seen in our society, and how would you like it to be seen?
Well, I think unfortunately, it's become shamed. Men are shamed. They're vilified for it. They're diminished. And what's happened is this kind of like culture of I like to call it the culture of psychotherapy, which is this idea that we're going to force men into communicating the way women, and by women I don't mean all women, I mean this kind of personified victimhood woman that has been created in Western culture. We're going to say to men, okay, you have to communicate this way in order for us to reward you with sex. And so it's completely disempowering on both sides. And you know, this idea that male sexuality is aggressive and male sexuality is destructive. Now, I've worked with a lot of men. I have sex with a lot of men still in my work. And I'm going to say that that's not my experience at all. My experience of men is that they want to make women happy, sexually and otherwise. And so this this idea that men are the personification of evil, and I mean it's absurd,
Right.
actually.
Right. And okay.
Well, it's not just absurd. It's hateful, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's actually abusive to continually present men in this manner. It stereotypes them as being predatory. It takes away that sense of mutuality in sexuality. That it's a mutual gift between men and women. And I think that in and of itself, I think, like I was alluding to before, I think the shaming in and of itself actually may incite men to desire more approval, more of a sense that they belong, because they're constantly being shamed.
Right. And the problem with that, and the concern with it, is that if we create a paradigm that's self-fulfilling for men, let's say the paradigm is no matter what you do, it's never enough. When we start talking about violence against women, you see it in those paradigms. You see it in paradigms where men are actually, they've given up, they're hopeless to ever actually achieve this. Like they did a study and they found that male suicide bombers tend to mostly occur in cultures where polygamy is standard. And the reason for that is it's the men at the bottom of the totem pole who have no chance to ever have a wife or healthy relationships, who are poor and still have to live with their families. Those men have nothing to live for. So they are the ones who will go and blow themselves up because they have no chance at a happy life. Some wealthy guy has 10 women. And you know what they blow themselves up for? A lot of them, it's this hope that when they die, they'll have 72 quote unquote virgins waiting for them. How interesting, how powerful it is. And we as women have this tremendous gift, and we get to honor the men in our lives. I hear women say, well, I want to be treated well. Well, if you treat the men in your life as though you would treat an equal partner, a king, and you yourself are a queen, then you don't have those problems.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of the women around me, they won't overtly admit it necessarily, but they'll do and say things that do admit to sort of using that shaming as a means of capitalizing on what male sexuality is and the way men relate to women sexually, and that if they keep them in that that circumstance of feeling like they have to earn the right to even be acknowledged and earn the right to even be considered human, that they will essentially be subservient. And I'm wondering if you have seen that as well. Maybe not necessarily professionally, but among other women around you.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Well, basically,
was there a question? No, I'm sorry. Was it there? I thought I missed a question there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you have also seen the same phenomenon. Did you need me to describe it again?
No. I heard that part. I'm sorry. I just missed that last part. It cut out for me. I've noticed that there's a real tendency to co-opt and leverage sexuality. by women as a whole against men. I think that's what you're asking me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's this bizarre kind of I think what happened, and I think this is when people talk about things like patriarchy or this idea of patriarchy, what's happened is a lot of women feel like they have the right, because they see themselves as victims, they have the right to co-opt and leverage the men in their lives. Like it's some sort of birthright given something that happened supposedly at some point in time. So that's my experience of it. To be honest, I have very little patience for it, because I think that cultures where you see this kind of functioning are incredibly damaging for everybody, including young women.
Yeah, I've noticed that, and I think I started noticing a lot of the problems where men have been hurt by these concepts of patriarchy and all of these just ridiculous things when I, started to become sexually active and I got involved with different men. And I found that a lot of them were harmed in ways that were directly tied to relationships and how they'd been treated by women and what women's expectations were of them. And I remember speaking to women that I felt that they expressed, discontentment with men and couldn't find a guy. And I asked them about whether or not they were self-reliant sexually. And they expressed often that they felt that a man should take the lead and should already know exactly what the woman wants, as if that he's some kind of massive psychic, as if he has to automatically know what all of this woman's expectations and needs. They almost feel as though they don't have to take an active role in their sexuality as females, that they don't have to be patient or kind or anything like that in trying to understand the needs of the men in their lives. It was incredibly frustrating to see that there was this mass miscommunication between the sexes, that this was even taking place, especially among people I considered to be, that they weren't as narrow-minded. I thought that they would, be a little more open than that. But it was incredibly backward. But that's just my what I've come to notice. Yeah, go on.
I think there's kind of a rainy day feminism that's taken hold of the culture, which is this idea that as women, there are a lot of women who are being taught by society that they deserve equal rights, and then there's this and there's that, and at the same time men still need to provide everything. And I have very low tolerance for this, because if we I actually believe that women are just as powerful as men, and because of that, the true queen archetype understands her power and is kind. And my experience of most men is they do want to please the women in their lives. They want desperately to do so. And so when we take that away from men by shaming them, we hurt ourselves and we hurt them too. And then we hurt our children. And as long as we have this victimhood meme still running within modern feminism, it's not going to get better, because these women are still, like, I worked in STEM. I worked as an engineer, and I was always paid per my pay grade exactly what the men were paid. Now, 50 years ago, that may not have been the case. I understand the origins of feminism in that position, but it's old. Like, that's an old conversation. That's over. So now let's move past the victimhood story and into a story that's more productive, because I don't have problems with the men in my life. I have many male friends and I've had many relationships, but I don't have problems with men because I honor men and people as human beings. I hear women who are otherwise well-educated and self-realized say things like, oh, well, you know how these men are. No, I don't. Why don't you enlighten me on that? It's not true.
Yeah.
Right.
I wanted to say something directly to your point about the pay differential 50 or actually probably more like 60 years ago. The reality in that time is that men were legally obligated to financially take care of their wives. And if you go back even further, men would be, like young men would be the first people booted out of a household when they found they had financial trouble. And the other thing is that that they would often preferentially give jobs to married men and say bachelors need not apply. So, I mean, in that sense, there's a more complex picture there in history than I think a lot of feminist rhetoric presents it as. Did you want to say anything to that, or we could move on to Mike, because I'm sort of stepping on him at the moment?
Oh, well, I think that's absolutely true. And I think, again, when we take things out of context, that's when it gets dangerous.
I agree very wholeheartedly. Mike?
We're going way back now to the point about the 72 virgins. It got me thinking about different societies and different visions they have of paradise. That maybe a masculine-driven vision of paradise involves the 72 virgins, because a masculine vision of heaven is sort of exploratory in some way. It involves the wilderness. It's got me thinking of what a more feminine vision of heaven would be, and it would probably be more familial, to do with family, to do with nesting, it would be the vision of heaven where you're with all your family again, and everything's, and it will be a bit like the Mormon vision of heaven, to go to that extreme, or the Anglican vision, which is not to say that Islamic religion is particularly patriarchal. It's just to say that the men are the agents of that vision of heaven, where the women are the agents of the modern Christian vision of heaven, perhaps.
Well, that's an interesting point. I think, especially the other part of that is the 72 virgins thing isn't necessarily a mandate or a dictum in all of Islam, but rather it's a story created by people who want to control and utilize these young men. So if they know that sex is such a driving force for these young men, and also unattainable in this lifetime, then it would be the perfect leverage point. And unfortunately, that's what you see. And so you see all of these young men blowing themselves up, and it's a great travesty for the world. It's very much like Helen of the Odyssey standing above, watching these young men kill each other. And I believe there's a quote it's either the Odyssey or the Iliad that speaks to exactly that, where she says, what a tragic shame, all of these beautiful young men's lives to waste.
I think that's absolutely right, and I think that honestly the most patriarchal societies are often the most gynocentric. You look at the Inuit, who happen to be probably the most patriarchal hunter-gatherer society out there, and the reason why they were so patriarchal was because the men brought in almost 100% of the food at extreme personal risk and cost, and so basically you had these men who were expected to go out on kayaks and harpoon whales that were 100 times their size, or go out on the ice where if you fell through you were dead, and stab seals and do all of these things. The men were expected to do 90+% of the work of surviving, and the women and the children stayed safe at home. And this was a culture where the men, up until very recently, had pretty much 100% of the say as far as, how things worked and what got done. But one would think that this would be understandable, since they were the only ones who were capable of doing the work required to keep everybody alive. And so I mean, you look at something like the Islamic society, the 72 virgins, all of that, and how that translates into 95% of child laborers in Afghanistan being boys who are hauling bricks 16 hours a day and sending the money home to their mothers and their sisters. Like this is really what it's like for these boys. They are seen as being patriarchal oppressors, and yet their entire lives revolve around providing for and protecting the women in their lives and the girls in their lives. And it really is, it's obscene to me how this is translated in our Western media. It's obscene to me how the exact same sentiments, you protect and you provide for women, you remove burdens from women, Whatever you do, you make sure women are not burdened with the things that men are burdened with. And that obligates you to the women in your lives. That this history of even Western culture up until about 100, 150 years ago, that this is cast as oppression, male oppression of women, male subordination of women, women being subordinate for men's express benefit. Like this, it just doesn't even fucking compute in my mind how people can believe this.
Right. Well, I mean, if you look at the trajectory of technology, you find that within matriarchal cultures, you don't see the same assimilation of higher tech, because for the longest time, until we had birth control, women were, having children, caring for families. And you found that men created technology in a lot of ways to make the women in their lives happy. You look at things like electricity. For usually in old homes in the 20s through the 1950s, the first bits of technology they would get were more or less to make the lives of the women in their lives more comfortable. Electricity, and water, right? Refrigerator. I mean, some of us remember our grandmother's great happiness when they got an ice box. They actually did a show. It was where these people lived in like the 1860s for a season, and they showed how difficult it was. But what was so interesting is as soon as they returned to modern culture, the women were elated to have a dishwasher again and a refrigerator and things like this. And so really, if you look at patriarchal cultures, and the shame is that we see patriarchy now as a quote unquote bad thing, in reality, within patriarchy, you would see greater trajectories of technological progress. And to negate that and to take that progression and the pride that's associated with that away from men nowadays is actually incredibly abusive, because it demeans and diminishes hundreds of years of male progress that we as women have directly benefited from.
Oh yeah, exactly. No, you look at the one comedian who said, she's sick of feminism and she's sick of this, and then she goes on to say, all of these male creations, all of this, the number system, tampons. I mean, how did we drop the ball on that one, ladies? Like, we were just sitting there in a pool of blood wondering, oh, what a pickle. How do I get out of this? Right?
Right.
Men invented
a pickle, baby.
Men invented all of those things. Men invented birth control for women, to please women. And what did women do? They were like, well, it's no good unless it's free.
Right. Nothing's ever good enough. How can, God.
It's like the things that liberated women most were electricity and indoor plumbing, and both invented by men. But why don't we move on to the next question, Crystal?
Okay, so Mercedes, what about male sexuality do you enjoy the most?
Oh, well, that's a great question, because I'm openly bisexual, and so I enjoy all people's sexuality. But what I enjoy about men in particular, and it's a very interesting thing, because there's so many spectrums of men too, we take people as individuals, but there's a real beauty to, as a woman, playing counterbalance to the strength of the masculinity and that driving force. It's very fascinating that a lot of these modern radfems consider all penis and vagina sex as rape or penetration, whereas I see it as instead just a beautiful occurrence of the strength and the rigidity of the masculine energy coming together with the softness of the feminine. And so we play that counterbalance, and I think that it's been taken away, and they're trying to take it away from men, but there's a real beauty to that aggression or that strength that men bring. And there's also a beauty to when a man is soft and delicate, and that's a beautiful occurrence too. So
you know what, just to add in, because there's space, but you know what I like about men is that they're totally unself-conscious in some ways. Like, a good-looking guy, 9 times out of 10, will have no conception that he's good-looking, like zero. And they just have this sort of unself-conscious innocence about them that I find very appealing. And it's like, I suggested this once on a blog a while back. Go look at pictures of men and women drinking from straws. The men are never looking at the camera. The women always are. And that's what I mean about self-consciousness. There's always that sense, oh, somebody's looking at me, whereas the guy is just enjoying the experience. And I had people come back and say, yeah, you're right. And that's sort of what I really like is, well, one of the many things, but just that unself-conscious innocence and just getting absorbed in the experience that I don't see with women as much. And go ahead, Brian. You said you could comment on this directly.
Yeah, I was just gonna speak from personal experience, in that I think that as a man, my experience, and many of the people that I know, is that we aren't really told, or I don't want to say valued, but I don't get the message that I am attractive. And I don't even know, without looking at the most perfect Brad Pitt version, what an attractive man looks like. Like, to me, and I'm saying this because I'm heterosexual, but I can find attractiveness in many different kinds of women, where there are different ethnicities and there are different shapes and sizes and heights, and I tend to find the positive, what I find attractive about that. But with men, I don't know. I never thought of myself as, I never could gauge how good looking I was. And I think as a result of that, I maintained that unconsciousness that you were talking about. And we don't get hit on openly often. You don't really see this sort of happening in the social marketplace. If a woman has an interest in you, generally she doesn't tell you. She waits for you to notice her, or she, does that. So you can go a long time without anyone recognizing that you have appeal, sexual appeal or whatever. And if it goes for that long, you just kind of you just tune it out. You just don't really notice. The only thing that does happen is where I lived in Chicago, in an area called Boys Town, which there's a lot of homosexuals there, and drag queens and men that were gay would hit on me often. And I thought that maybe I was just appealing to them. So even in that context, I couldn't gauge what makes an attractive man. I think that might be a part of it. So as a result of it, I never was concerned with my appearance that much. I'm not a vain person. I don't like taking pictures of myself. And if someone is taking a picture of me, I don't engage the camera, that much. So I was just commenting directly on what you said, and I was just adding to it. That was my thoughts.
So what, regarding that, I'm sorry, Mercedes, were you going to say something?
No. Well, I was just going to comment. I think it's, again, because we teach girls that they are somehow disempowered or weak. We don't teach them the value of being nice. And so what happens is, a lot of times women are not trained to say out loud the compliments that they think in their head, because they're taught, let's have him pursue me. I compliment men and women all the time, every day, because when I think something nice, I say it. And I think, that's a mindfulness practice that if we got to that place in society, we'd be having a different conversation right now.
Right. And when I was a sex worker, because I was an escort for 9 years, and 7 years. I was a stripper for 9 years anyway. So the clients I had were of many different body types. I had guys who were really heavy. I had guys who had six packs. I had guys who were slender, whatever, of all different age ranges, whatever. And to me, they were all beautiful. To me, they were all very attractive. And I was turned on by them. It didn't matter what they physically looked like to me, because to me, I could just be with them and feel how tender they were. And they were so sweet. And, so to me, they were all beautiful. And all men are beautiful. And I think it's a real awful thing that's being done when the beauty of male sexuality isn't being openly discussed in society, where the beauty of men isn't openly being discussed in society. I think it's just a real shame, and I find it really abusive to men, because men don't get to see just how naturally beautiful they are. And I'm seeing that this is going to be changing, and I hope it continues to change, and it will. But yeah, all men are beautiful, and so all men are sexy. Everybody has their own delicious sexuality, and all men have beautiful sexuality, and it's really not doesn't have to look a certain way to be beautiful.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think part of this is, it's interesting to me that actually society has not maybe caught on, because my experiences with men are largely positive because so few women understand. Like, a lot of times if a man does something and women are not happy, they shame him, when in reality it's literally just an oversight. But women are taught growing up by television and media that this is a real proliferation right now, is the story that the man is the dunce or the idiot. We see it in primetime TV and sitcoms. So girls are learning that it's okay to disparage men, and ultimately that harms us all, because those same girls grow up to be women in their 30s going, how come none of my relationships work? Well, it's because they haven't learned. You don't talk to people that way. Why are you talking to your boyfriend that way when you wouldn't talk to your best friend that way? Why is that acceptable? At what point do we lose kindness? And there's always this story of men are abusive, and you know what? Yeah, some are, absolutely. But you know what? I see more covert emotional and spiritual abuse by women towards men than I see it the other way around.
Right. Yeah, I would have to agree with that as well. And I think that even the very structures of our society, this expectation that men conform to women's morality and their expectations of behavior is abusive. So it's almost like this whole Gamergate thing where we are expected to judge the gamer culture based on its effect on women. Well, that's, I think, is abusive to men. I mean, why should we have to judge a culture based on its effect on women? And sorry, I introduced another question there, but go ahead.
Yeah, but that's the other issue I have with that is that if we as women are standing there under the banner of feminism and saying, well, we want equal rights. Well, I worked with nothing but men as an engineer, and guess what? Part of the male thing is men rib on each other. That's it's a camaraderie thing. So if you want to hang and you want to be equal, you got to grow some thicker skin in life, because a lot of these guys, and the other thing is, most of these gamer guys are incredible sweethearts, really, really sweet guys, who just want to play their video games. But there's this group of women who are saying, well, I don't like the game that you're playing. Okay, well, don't play it. I mean, I don't like hockey. I don't like to play hockey, so I don't play hockey. It doesn't mean that hockey needs to be shut down as a sport. That's a crazy, stupid idea. But what's happened is, again, that's the leveraging of that victimhood meme. Ironically, the quote-unquote trope of the damsel in distress that they rail against is exactly the one they pull from whenever they want sympathy. And that's a double standard that has to go. So either you're a feminist and you're equal, and you're going to hang with the men, and you're going to have equal rights, and you're going to get equal pay, and you're going to pay for your own goddamn dinners and open your own door, or you're going to play the damsel and you're going to give up your jobs for the married men. Which is it? Pick one.
Right.
No, exactly. I find with a lot of men I play with, like, I will try to give them compliments. Like, one of my flatmates years ago, I said to him, "You've got lovely eyes. You know that?" And he was kind of taken aback by it. I don't think a lot of men are used to having these kind of compliments where a woman will say, in not a sexual way, "Oh, you've got pretty eyes. You've got nice hair. You've got this, that, and the other." They're not used to having those kind of compliments, because it's not really something that men do to each other. So it's like, if you're doing it in a non-sexual way, just said, "Oh, you've got nice eyes, you've got lovely eyes, you've got nice hair," and stuff like that. It's they're kind of taken aback because they're not used to having those kind of compliments. They're kind of used to having their looks sort of overlooked in a sense. But going back to gaming, it's that I notice with a lot of guys in games is that a lot of men will try their best to accommodate women as humanly possible. Now, I don't like it personally. I would rather just earn my place in a game on merit. In different games I play, I'm absolutely terrible, but in online games like Warcraft, I'm pretty good. So I was actually given a message today by one of my friends. He's a lot older than me. He's in his 50s, and he said to me that we don't bring you along because you're a woman. We bring you on because you fit into the group, you love the game, you have a fantastic sense of humor, and you're always a delight to be around. And that just touched my heart so much to know that these men who are horrible misogynists, who hate me, who only want me there so I can make them sandwiches, they think so highly of me to go out of their way to say, no, we love having you here because you are part of the group. You try hard and you pull your weight. You're not here just to try and garner attention. I actually used to have a woman in my guild who tried to garner a lot of attention. She would purr in the group chat, like literally go non-stop, and it just drove everybody nuts.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, my just jumping in. My boyfriend actually he had a brief thing when we were first seeing each other. He was seeing several other people at the same time, and one of the people that he was seeing, I guess they got together one afternoon, and he was I guess paddling her bum, and she was doing this whole thing. And he was completely put off by it. He was just like, what are you doing? Because like, honestly, if somebody's like smacking your backside, you should be so into it that it wouldn't ever occur to you to make some false, weird, artificial noise.
Right.
You know, noise, sure, but not prrr, prrr. It really threw him. It just seemed so insincere and ungenuine. I don't think he ever went back to visit her.
Yeah, we are Siamese, if you please.
There you go. Yeah, no, it was.
Okay,
it was
but Karen, you jumped on Brian.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
It's okay. It's okay. The only thing I wanted to add in was that Gemma mentioned that when she told her flatmate, I just wanted to say flatmate, that he had beautiful eyes and he was taken aback. I wanted to comment on that because that relates directly to the thing I said earlier when I said that men generally aren't accustomed to those kinds of compliments and niceties. And one of the unfortunate side effects of that is that if you're not used to hearing something, you can very easily mistake it for romantic attention. And I think that is also, because you want to be nice, but if a guy has never heard a compliment or he's never known that he has nice eyes, or somebody told me I have great eyelashes once, then you would think, is she flirting with me? Because I never hear this from anyone. And this
flirting with me or mocking me, by the way.
Yeah, depending on the
some of us can't get out of that headspace. Like, are you taking a piss?
Yeah, and then you see this is so. This is just, again, when you're a guy, this is so unusual that you just don't know what to make of it. And I think that's why men are generally taken aback by these kinds of compliments. And they're also so unaccustomed to getting them that they think that when they give them, they're doing something really noteworthy. And, like if you see a pretty girl and you say, oh, you look really good today or whatever, and the girl just says, oh, thank you, because she's heard it 100,000 times. And the guy's like, oh, I thought I said something nice. So there's a weird thing that happens.
I'd like to take this a moment here to inaugurate Give a Man a Compliment Day.
Nice.
Let's see, what day is it today?
Yes.
Yes, every year, December 11th. Or maybe it should be in the summer. Every day, this time comes around, you should go out and give a guy a compliment. And
take that, Movember.
Yeah.
See, Southern Hemisphere people invented Movember because it's not cold in November down there.
And speaking of
Let's
which,
invent a Northern Hemisphere thing.
Mike, your voice is very sexy.
Yes, it is.
You're damn
Actually,
right it is.
Fucking A, Mike.
You're just damn
like,
right. It just damn well
I've
is.
heard of several people that say that they would make love to your voice. They would just.
Mike?
If they could personify it, it's something that they could make love to.
Yes.
My voice would make sweet love right back to you.
I think they're objectifying your voice, sir.
See, that's not possible. I've had this discussion. It's not possible to objectify a voice. That's what's so damn sexy about a voice. I've got some theories about sonic sex, actually. I'll get into it later.
Oh, my.
All right, but here's what I need you to say to me, Mike, right now. Right now, Mike?
What?
You blackguard.
You blackguard, Strawn.
Oh, God.
Okay,
Oh, my.
guys, you go take care of yourself.
Oh, gosh. Yeah,
I think I'm getting a contact high, so to speak.
She'll be in her butt.
That was gorgeous.
Oh, my gosh.
All right. So, Rachel, is that all you had to say?
Well, no, that wasn't all I had to say. But to be honest, yeah. I mean, a lot of times guys don't even know that you're hitting on them when you're hitting on them hard because they don't know if you're being authentic. They'll think, oh, you're just saying that to be nice or something. Like, I flirted with my current boyfriend for years, and he had no idea that I was flirting with him. For years. Just like...
Why years? What were you doing?
Well,
come out and say it. Like, that's what I did with my husband.
God, we were... Well, the thing about it is that, what would happen would be there would be periods in between when I wasn't seeing anyone, and then I'd end up in a relationship, and then I just wouldn't, the flirting would go away, and then, I talked to him again when I wasn't, seeing anybody, in a more,
Yeah, so
flirty.
yeah, I got you.
It was just...
Of course, you could have just done what I did, and I just said, "Do you want to have sex?" And he said yes.
Right.
It's like, okay, that's awesome.
When he came to
Let's
visit,
attempt that.
but that's another story.
let's give it a good college try. So let's move on to another question.
Okay.
Okay.
Crystal.
So, Mercedes, male sexuality, as we were just speaking, has not been fully supported in our society. How does this affect the porn industry and you as an adult star?
Well, it's interesting because what I've noticed and what's happened as a result of it is a lot of men have actually gone to porn as a way to experience sex without having to deal with all of the shame and emotional fallout of having to actually deal with a woman. And what's interesting is I think that that's part of the reason that a lot of these kind of anti-sex third wave radfem feminists dislike porn because it gives men an option and an alternative. Same thing with camming. I do live sex cam shows, and a lot of the men go, okay, I don't want to go out and go on a date with some woman who may or may not leverage sex against me, or et cetera, et cetera. I'll stay at home, pay the same amount that I would for a dinner and a date, and get online with a cam girl and have a great conversation, have virtual sex, or go see an escort or a tantrika or something of that nature. So it gives men an outlet so they don't have to be subject to the social meme. And I think that's part of the reason feminists are so against it. The male performers, what I love about male performers in porn is these are men who are having sex really regularly. But what's fascinating and what I noticed about them early on is how many of them are very sweet, very much in touch with, not all. I mean, you have your bad apples here and there, but for the most part, they're very sweet because they're not in pursuit of sex all the time and they're not being turned down all the time. And they may or may not, you don't always connect with whoever your co-performers are, but more often than not, the people who last in the industry a while, and I'm very lucky that I work in a very good tier of the industry. I work in like big industry, top companies, top performers. And you don't last for years in that industry as a male performer because you're an asshole. You last because the girls like you and everybody gets along with you and stuff like that. So that's kind of my take on the role that pornography has in society. And I think that that's part of the reason it is so disparaged.
Yeah, I would agree. I would definitely agree. There's definitely a fear of the sexually empowered woman and the sex worker, because then there's no leverage, and men can't be controlled sexually because of the evil whores running loose. So
It's not just a fear of sex workers. It's a fear of attractive women, and like Roy Baumeister did a study looking into slut shaming and found that it's predominantly done by women against women. With sort of lower status women, they slut shame the sort of the cliquish higher status women in an effort to bring them down, and the higher status cliquish women slut shame the lower status women in an effort to keep them down. That when you look into things like age of consent laws, these are all feminist driven, female activist driven. And you have this weird dichotomy where you have like sort of the feminist movement pushing to have age of consent laws enacted in order to sort of eliminate the competition. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, then you have somebody like Simone de Beauvoir, who was fired from her teaching job at a university for seducing underage female students and luring them into threesomes with herself and her lover, Jean-Claude Sartre. And she was fired from that. So she and a bunch of her fellow intellectuals then lobbied to have these age of consent laws that earlier feminists brought into legislation, to have them completely repealed and eliminated, because they didn't sit well with her particularly. There is really this sort of, even look at Eve Ensler and the Vagina Monologues, and the first printing of that play. One of the episodes in it involved an adult lesbian, I think in her 30s, seducing a 13-year-old girl. And the last line in it was it rape? If it was rape, it was a good rape. The musings of this 13-year-old girl. And later that was raised to age 16. But you sort of have this kind of this weird conflict among feminists and feminist activists as to, we want to keep age of consent laws in place, right? And we want to have them because that eliminates the competition. But at the same time, there's this, but then that eliminates us being able to have the partners that we want to have. And it's just complete. It really, there is no logic to it. It's just all based on what's right for me at this very moment. If it was rape, it was a good rape.
Right.
Yeah. Wait, is anybody else in the?
Crystal?
Yes.
Let's move on to the next question.
Okay.
Oh, what about otter justice?
So Mercedes.
Was I muted?
What?
When I talked about the vagina feels, was I muted?
I think you were.
Oh my God, the mute button has. Oh, okay. All right, go ahead, Chris.
Moment's gone.
Okay, so Mercedes, your job is a beautiful celebration of sexuality, including male sexuality. What's your favorite way to celebrate male sexuality?
Oh, well, I'm so lucky because I am the recipient of so much beautiful male sexuality on an ongoing basis that I mean, part of what I love about my job is really the opportunity to have sex with lots of people, mostly men. And, but see, here's something I learned when I was escorting. What I learned across the board is always find something to love about somebody in the first 5 seconds you meet them. And if you can do that in life, then you'll have a much easier time, because even if that person eventually pisses you off or upsets you, you still have that one thing to grab onto. So, and to me, there's male sexuality. For example, my favorite movie is actually The Gladiator, because I don't think there's anything more noble than a strong but sensitive man who fights for what's right, who fights for what he believes in. And there's a reason that that movie was so popular amongst men, especially. Here's this protagonist character
who loves his wife and kid.
Oh, to the
loves his
bitter
wife.
end, to the bitter end, and that's such a beautiful thing. And so we've lost that honor and that nobility in a lot of the modern stories because the feminist narrative doesn't allow for it. The feminist narrative says men are big brutes, or they're little, sissy boys that are controlled by us, but that's it. That's how this works. The dunces or the brutes. And I say no. The fully developed male, the 4 archetypes of male development, the king, the magician, the hero, and the golden child, all of those archetypes can be wrapped up into a fully developed male. And I think we get to encourage the men in our culture into self-discovery. We have tremendous amounts of self-help available for women who want to learn and know more about themselves and take courses, but we don't encourage that when we encourage it with men, it's only by virtue of trying to make them more like women in their communication style. And that is a terrible, terrible waste.
Well, one of the things that gets me too is that, Gladiator was always the movie that I would watch, and I would watch it if I was just premenstrual. I would watch it so I could have a good cry. And if I was pre-ovulation, I would watch it for the sword fights, right? It just depended on where in my hormone cycle I was, what I would really, really love. But I loved everything about that movie. And one of the things that really, really hit me about that movie, and it just absolutely, but when he arrives home and he finds that his wife and his child are dead, they've been crucified and they've been burned. And you look at that scene and how he just collapses and he's just doubled over in pain, and there's like snot pouring out and bubbling out of his nose, and he's just like sobbing and weeping and completely grief stricken and just absolutely destroyed. And then the end scene where he sees, he's walking through the fields and he sees his wife and his child waiting for him, and he's finally okay. And it's the most amazing testimony to what men will do, how loyal they can be. And this is really the thing. I mean, like you look at how quickly people get over long-term relationships when they break up. With women, it's an average of 2 months, and then they're ready to start dating again. And with men, it can be up to 2 years, and on average. And so, I mean, you look at that. Men, I think we absolutely shortchange men because they don't express it, because they don't get all wordy about it, right? Or if they get wordy about it, they get wordy about it in music or poetry or in deeds, right? In things that they do. I knew a woman, her husband, every day, her husband whose leg was crushed in a mining accident, and then he went to work for the town in landscaping, so still physical work. So he's on oxycodone, he's got a lame leg, and he's out there cutting the grass, pruning the trees, picking up garbage, all of that stuff, right, for the town. And every morning, she was a teacher at the school, every morning before he left for work at 7 a.m., he would scrape her windshield for her so that she wouldn't have to do it. And it was like she just expected it.
Okay.
And that is just like the most unbelievable testimony to just like, this is a guy who's got like a crushed leg. He's on oxycodone. He's in constant pain. It's a cold morning, and he's out there scraping his wife's windshield for her so she doesn't have to do it when she leaves for work. And she didn't even think to appreciate that.
Yeah. When I hear this, what you're saying, Karen, and what men will sacrifice for women, what I feel is that I want to be somehow worthy of that. Like I want to do or to sacrifice in turn.
Yes.
To be worthy of that. And it's I don't know if that's a rare thought among women, but for me it sort of inspires me to think, well, what can I sacrifice in turn? Because I think it's the mutuality of that that's really.
Well, that's the most beautiful thing. That's the most beautiful part of it is that there is a mutual giving, and that you can give and give and give and give and give for 6 months and get nothing back because your partner is in a state of need, but then you're going to get it back when he's recuperated, and he's able to do so. Right. And he's always coming home to you. You just know it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. But I wonder, I mean, how much does that occur to a lot of women think that, to look at what men provably will do and how much they invest in their relationships, how much they want to feel desired.
I don't think they notice. I don't think they notice because, here's the thing. Bill Burr said it. Bill Burr said it perfectly, is that women with the Oprah thing, right? Oh, it's the most difficult job on the planet, being a mother. She's not even a mother. How does she know, right? These women are literally bending over at the waist and inserting DVDs into DVD players. Like any job that you can do in your pajamas, how is that the most difficult job on the planet? I thought, roofing in July as a redhead was the most difficult job on the planet, right? Like he's going into this whole, but he said basically it's this constant need for backslapping that women have. They need to be constantly congratulated on how difficult their lives are and how hard they have it and how brave and courageous and what go-getters and what spunk they have to be able to cope with everyday life, right? Just with everyday life, they have to be like super courageous, right?
To the point where they've invented an entire
culture around how brave we are.
An entire ideology of how they're underdogs in every
and which basically means that if I do the dishes, like, and I spent all morning on the phone doing things, begging bureaucrats to make exceptions for my boyfriend, right? Because he was in meetings all day and he needs something done and he needs it and he cannot get it done because he's in meetings all day, leading up to when he needs it done, right? And they're like, well, our privacy regulations don't allow me to tell you that, blah, 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 blah. And so I spent all morning on the phone begging for this stuff, right? I do this because of what he does for me, right? I do this because I care about him. And he appreciates that. But that's it's not like I did the dishes and now I want a pat on the back, right? And here's the thing. Men do all kinds of little tiny things, like scraping your windshield off, and they don't even expect you to mention it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mercedes.
Well, I think, part of it is men do things for women because we live in a society where the opportunity for men to have a bonding experience with other men in a safe culture has been kind of fragmented. I don't know if that's a result of being a prairie culture with settlers or what it is, but women tend to have collaborative, like, groups of friends and women to commiserate with, to reinforce each other's beliefs and ideas and all this. And men usually have the woman in their life as a bouncing off point, is that's the safe space. That's the person that can provide the safety and the validation. And men might have a couple of good friends, but they don't call each other to commiserate or to be made right all the time, the way that most women operate with their girlfriends. And so, it's also hardwired. You can see it in children very early on. boys want to protect girls. They want to take care of girls. Now, the problem is that what's happened in society is it's become exploitive, where women have not been taught to also respect and give in their own way. It's become a given expectation. And when you have that set up in modern relationships, you're going to have a lot of very coddled, very entitled, very self-righteous and narcissistic women who are running the show, who, by the way, have now leveraged the entire legal and financial system to their liking. So if they, a very, very good friend of mine had his girlfriend would be physically abusive, and he knew he couldn't do anything about it because she's 5'2" and he's 6'2". If the cops get called, it's no different. An abusive woman abusing her boyfriend, I don't care how much larger, because with a pan of oil or with a gun, she can do just as much damage. Calls the police and leverages that, knowing damn well that the police are going to take him to prison and not her. It's no different than a man beating his wife up in the 1940s and the police not doing anything about it. And the real problem is you have women in society who are unhealed and who are not self-realized, and they're playing out their shadows and their problems, and they're projecting it out into the entire world. And we've allowed them, you brought up Oprah, and that's a perfect example of a social platform that a woman is created to allow women nothing more than to commiserate with one another. And it's really, really problematic. And I'm part of the generation that was reared on this. And what it has done to gender relations in my generation, it's going to take at least a generation to repair it, in my opinion.
I just wanted to ask you, how old are you, Miss Mercedes?
I am 32.
Okay. Yeah, no, because I'm 44. I'm 44, and I was raised also in this sort of generation of Oprah and Phil Donahue and Maury Povich and all of that. And I mean, so much of it just feeds into the sense of grievance. And you just sort of look at feminist spaces and how they won't allow male victims in. The reason I think that they won't allow male victims in to those spaces and portray them as sort of interlopers who are intending to use their privilege to violate the safe space for women, is because the space isn't a space for healing, it's a space for nursing grudges.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But thanks, Karen. And I just want to move on to another question, because we have a few and then we have some news items. This is to Mercedes. Do you feel, and this is from Transic NYC, tweeted to Honey Badger Bite, do you feel that current women have more or less or the same level of repulsion to male sexuality? I guess than previous women would be the question.
I think women have, by virtue of these narcissistic television shows such as Sex and the City, I think women have been taught to believe that it's okay and acceptable to diminish men. And I think that that's a fairly new paradigm within modern society. It's become trendy or hip or cool to make fun of traditionally male or masculine activities. And it's not just happening by women, it's also happening by men. In this culture, men who consider themselves to be quote unquote progressives tend to be diminishing toward traditionally male activities, partially because our standard of living is so easy and it's so accessible. It's no longer necessary for men to be strong and courageous. You don't have to be strong and courageous to go down and pick up a chicken cutlet from Trader Joe's. Right. So in the past, it was extremely necessary for men to be strong and valiant. And now little progressive men who drink craft beer and whine about the system could sit in a bar and pick up a chick that way. Why would they bother doing anything that's traditionally masculine? And women have picked up on that too, because women are afraid. Women, the meme within the female paradigm right now is you have all these unhealed women who are carrying on this cultural story of being victims and being abused and all of this that may or may not have happened in their lives, and they're still running that program. It's literally like the software hasn't been updated.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Hannah.
There was a time when men and women used to be able to good-naturedly razz each other about our differences. I mean, we have differences. If we didn't have differences, life would be pretty fucking boring. But if you look back in older pop culture, old plays, old movies, old books, and you look at the dynamics of, you know, we did. I shouldn't say we because I'm not that old, but it was normal for women and men to have a certain level of, well, you know, guys are this way or gals are this way and we don't understand it and ha ha ha, you know. But it wasn't mean and hateful and spiteful and angry and the way it is today, and it wasn't demeaning the way it is today when women do it to men. It was more of an acknowledgement that there are simply things about each other that we aren't going to necessarily understand or adopt or agree with, and that it's okay for us to have those differences and not necessarily like them 100% and still love each other.
One of the things that got me is that whole the line of merchandise and the line of books, boys are stupid, throw rocks at them. That was actually stolen from the Little Rascals or Our Gang, those little short black and white cartoons with Alfalfa and Spanky and all those little kids. And it used to be in those short movies, it used to be girls are stupid, throw rocks at them, and it was the He-Man Women Haters Club that they had, just like Calvin and Hobbes. He had the gross get rid of stinky girls or whatever it was.
It was slimy. Sorry,
slimy. Right.
It was
get
slimy.
rid of slimy girls. And and so there was this real animosity, and you look at Calvin and Susie Durkins, this huge animosity, right? But here's the thing with that animosity between the Little Rascals, between Calvin and Susie, was that there was that animosity. Girls are stupid, throw rocks at them, but the girls always got the better of the boys, right? Susie Durkins always got the better of Calvin. Oh, my eyeball! I lost my eyeball, right? In the snow, I think it's in that snowbank, and then she beams him with a snowball, right? Right at point blank range, right? Like the girl always got the better of that boy who was being a douchebag, right?
Exactly.
So now you have this whole meme of boys are stupid, throw rocks at them, and the boys don't get the better of the girls. So
it's much more mean spirited.
It really is. It really is. It's and the whole animosity between boys and girls of the ages of like 4 to like maybe 12. That's all natural, anthropologically speaking. That's typical that they self-segregate at around age 4, around the time when they stop peeing with the bathroom door open, and they get offended when you accidentally walk in on them. When they start wearing pants around the house, right? That's when they start self-segregating, and then there's this sort of rivalry between the boys and the girls. The boys hang out with the boys, the girls hang out with the girls. There's a little bit of mixing, but not that much. And then they come back together as not as the unisex individuals that they were before they segregated, but as boys and girls. And so, I mean, like this is a normal thing, that animosity. But when it's presented as boys having an animosity toward girls, there's always that element that the girls eventually bite the boys in the ass, and the opposite just does not seem to be the case. The girls always have the upper hand.
With this animosity is that it's almost like girls stay in that prepubescent stage of animosity towards boys, and they don't really develop out of it. But Gemma has something she wants to say, so come on up, Jenna. Come.
Yeah, it's just it's the general in the media and stuff like that, the view that men you have to portray men as either this kind of douchebag stereotype that all they want is sex, or you have this sort of dunce. And I would just get infuriated watching the television, just thinking, will you please stop portraying men as just these two stereotypes, that he's just this sex mad, crazed douchebag, or he's a klutz. And it's just, I found when I stood back from feminism, when I could stop perceiving problems within my own gender, I could see the problems that men face in media. And it is, I think, a lot more prevalent, because a fantastic comparison was made to male and female video game characters, where they said that a male character is allowed to be portrayed as a dunce. He's allowed to be portrayed as a hero, as a villain. But you can't do this to female characters, because you will instantly get Anita Sarkeesian on there saying, this is sexist, how dare you do it. Do you know what I really love in Extras? I can't remember the name of the character, but she was the first female character I remember who was stupid. She was the first female character who was completely thick, but she was adorable. And the fact that they even had a female character who was stupid was amazing to me, because you never can portray women in any other role other than the bitch, or, the strong, independent woman, or the shy, meek woman. It's pretty bad for both sides, but women cannot be portrayed in a bad light. And this is what's really troubling, is because, like I said, with people like Anita Sarkeesian, you want writers to write better stories, yet if you try to portray a woman in a different light other than she is the most perfect being on earth, no flaws at all, then instantly you get the call of sexism. And yeah, that's why I did love Extras, because it was the first woman I'd ever seen in media who was stupid, and I absolutely adored it. It was fantastic.
One thing I just wanted to mention really, really quickly is Paul Nathanson and Catherine Young, and they've done the Misandry series of books, spreading misandry and the other books in the series, Paul Nathanson was relating an anecdote where another researcher, a sociologist, had said to him that they'd done a study. He'd done a study of commercials and found that in any situation in a commercial where a man and a woman were pitted against each other in some sort of competition, even if it's just who can wash dishes properly or who knows how to do the laundry, right? The woman, 100% of the time, the woman came out on top. The woman won the competition. And Paul had said, Dr. Nathanson had said, yeah, no, in sociology, nothing ever happens 100% of the time. And then he and his partner spent 10 years of very, very fastidiously watching every single television commercial that they were exposed to, and found that over 10 years, there were only 2 commercials that they had stumbled across that showed the man getting the better of the woman. Every single other, and I even see this, like there's an ad that comes on in front of videos. It's a Got Milk ad. Are you getting your daily servings of milk? And the mother and the teenage daughter, check marks in their boxes, and the father and the teenage son, X marks in their boxes because they aren't getting enough milk because they're too dumb or incompetent or inept to have enough servings of milk every day. And it's just the most amazing thing, if you actually look out for it, that women will always come out on top in any kind of situation in advertising where they're pitted against each other.
Yep. And of course, our guest, Matthew from the Fine Young Capitalist, said it's because women dominate the demographic that watches TV, which begs the question: maybe men's rights activists should start talking about making TV and TV audiences inclusive to men. Going in there and cleaning up all that misandry. But
it's not just that they watch TV. It's women do the majority of the shopping. So if you're going to pick Fantastic or Comet, it's a woman who's picking it. If you're going to pick Purex or Tide, it's a woman who's going to pick it.
Yeah, but we should get on to the news. Mercedes, if you you can would you like to partake in our discussions of the news items that we have for today? Mercedes, are you still there? Am I still here?
I'm here.
Yes, everyone's here.
I'm not all here.
So you're here. So what we usually do is we talk a little bit about news items that are of interest, and and you're welcome to chime in with your thoughts on these items as well.
Cool.
Would you like to join us for that?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, Rachel. What's
I
our
would
first
like,
item?
if I may, to take you on a strange journey. I mean, well, we've got Hannah's piece. I don't know if it's really long. I don't know if we have enough time. But she can read that part if she so chooses.
Sure,
Why don't
I
you
will go ahead
abridge
and read
it?
that.
Huh?
Abridge it?
Yeah.
Oh
abridge
gosh,
it as
I'm not sure what to. Well, let me just try reading it real fast, okay?
All right.
Okay. Last month, Rolling Stone published an article by Sabrina Rubin Erdley alleging the brutal gang rape of a woman named Jackie during a party at a University of Virginia fraternity house. The story provided details of the alleged rape and accused the university of failing to respond to the accusation. It went on to accuse the school of a history of indifference to sexual assault of women. The story received worldwide coverage and inspired UVA President Teresa Sullivan to promise a full investigation into both the allegation and the school's general handling of sexual misconduct allegations. However, under the scrutiny brought by increased coverage, Jackie's story and then Sabrina Rubin Erdley's claims of having fact-checked began to fall apart and eventually crumbled, dealing heavy damage to Rolling Stone's credibility in the process. According to an investigation done by the Washington Post, several details of Jackie's narrative are demonstrably false. There was no date, function, or formal event on the night she claims the assault occurred. The student she claims led her to the room where the crime is alleged to have occurred, identified in the original story as Drew, is not a brother in the fraternity in question and may not exist at all. None of the fraternity's members worked in the fall of 2012 at the pool where she claims to have encountered Drew after the alleged assault. Jackie's friends have described disturbing effort at falsification by Jackie to convince them of his existence. They have also directly contradicted her claims about being discouraged from going to police, a claim that was used to infer that the university has a culture of indifference to rape. Also contradicted were Erdley's claims about their willingness to talk about the allegations. In addition, they've stated that significant details of Jackie's story have changed over time, including a number of alleged perpetrators. The Rolling Stone has had to publish a retraction to admit to serious failure in fact-checking and accountability. That failure is directly attributed to their hesitation to question a rape accuser's story. According to the retraction, we have come to the conclusion that we were mistaken in honoring Jackie's request to not contact the alleged assaulters to get their account. In trying to be sensitive to the unfair shame and humiliation many women feel after a sexual assault, we made a judgment. The original lie, which incited protests and widespread debate, has been used by feminists as a social battering ram to try to force the public to adopt a believe the accuser mentality, which led to changes in campus policy regarding fraternities, as well as attacks against the named fraternity and eventually its suspension. It was published not because Jackie is a genius whose clever ruse misled an otherwise meticulously careful journalist, but because it fit in with the writer's existing political outlook. Ideology reduced this legendary publication to the status of weaponized damsel amplifier, making it one more example of why ethics in journalism is so important.
Thanks for that, Hannah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I just want to add, it wasn't just Phi Kappa Psi fraternity that was punished. All fraternities on that campus were suspended indefinitely when that story broke in Rolling Stone, and basically they had bricks thrown through their windows. They had rape frat spray painted on the front of their house, and they like. But here's the thing: it was collective punishment of every single fraternity, and there was a a commitment made on the part of the administration of the university to really look into the horrible toxic fraternity culture that causes these kinds of things to happen, these kinds of things that didn't actually happen. And also, I wanted to also say that that essentially what it's looking like now is that the entire thing was fabricated. It was made out of whole cloth, and that Erdely and others have consistently, other feminists have consistently said, well, we shouldn't allow, okay, even if this particular time it was false, we shouldn't allow that to get in the way of the narrative. We shouldn't allow that to get in the way of, because there is a rape culture, right? And so we should, this should be a teaching moment. Even if it didn't happen, what if it did, and what would we do? And we should prepare for it, and blah blah blah, right? And it's just the entire and frankly, Erdely, both Jackie and the journalist and the editors, they betray a history of never having experienced physical violence in their lives. Because if any of them had experienced physical violence, they would know that falling through a coffee table, if it was regular glass, they would not be crawling away from that, let alone walking away from it. If it was tempered glass, they would have broken ribs if they hit it with enough force to break tempered glass. And then on top of that, the beer bottle, if someone had hurled a beer bottle at your face and it shattered on your cheek, you would probably have facial fractures and possibly lose an eye. You would not be left with a bruise.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So basically, the
these
story
are people who are so privileged. They've never experienced any of the bullshit that they are writing about.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously, it's a story with so many holes. I mean, even if you haven't experienced that, you know that breaking glass results in lots and lots and lots of blood. But I wanted to, there was actually a question that's very pertinent to this particular news item that was directed towards Mercedes. And this was from, again, Transit NYC, who seems to be getting a lot of his questions asked. What are your opinions on the current wave of rape hysteria at college campuses? Once again, this is directed to Mercedes. So do you want to answer that, or?
Sure, yeah. So, again, this is another part of the emotional hysteria culture that's being pushed as a part of the progressive agenda that feminists have really latched onto, which is that we're allowing people to be the judge, jury, and executor. Well, we have a legal system in place for this reason. So if this woman had a rape grievance, then the appropriate course of action, especially had she been thrown through a coffee table, would have been to alert the authorities and to go through that procedure. The fact that society is reporting on these supposed events without fact-checking, without going through the appropriate legal channels, tells you that we are literally one postmodernist step away from allowing people's experience of things to be considered to be truth. And I've seen comments like this as part of the postmodern dictum, which is that somebody's subjective experience of something is just as valid as a fact, which is simply ridiculous. And as somebody my education was not in the humanities, it was in a very black and white field. So I think we're seeing this across the board in society. This comes, and unfortunately, it used to be that logic and reason would check emotionality, but when you allow emotionality to run cultures, this is what you have. And so these hysterias, like the rape fear, that's been happening since I was a kid. It was the kidnapped child fear. And this started in the schools. And so we are a society that is perpetually run on fear at this point, and it's highly unproductive.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with what you're saying there, even though agreement isn't as fun as disagreement. But we do have to move on to another news item. So Rachel, cue one up.
I will
lay it out.
I will go and I will use the second longest one, and I think it's very
apropos,
very related. Yes, Lena Dunham's memoirs ruin a man's reputation. In her book, Not That Kind of Girl, Lena Dunham describes being raped by a well-known campus Republican named Barry while she attended Oberlin College back in 2005. She describes the man in great detail, mentioning things like a flamboyant mustache, that he worked at a library, and hosted a campus radio show. All of this would be well and good if no one had attempted to identify the attacker. Online sleuths seeking to find the man who raped Lena Dunham misidentified the attacker as a man news sources are codenaming Barry 1. People found this man on social media, his family, where he worked, etc. He contacted Dunham's representatives months ago with his concerns over the misidentification, and was ignored until he began crowdfunding to take the actress to court over the matter. The publisher of the memoir, Random House, has since made a public statement saying that the name Barry was merely a pseudonym and shall be changed to another name in newer copies of the book. They have also offered to pay all of Barry 1's legal fees. The place where it gets really weird is that even in the book, the scenario she describes isn't as much rape as it is rough, regretful sex. Quote, Barry, number 4, we fucked. 69. It was terribly aggressive. Only once. No one came. Unquote. Quote again. When I was young, I read an article about a 10-year-old girl who was raped by a stranger on a dark road, and I never forgot the story, but I didn't remember until many days after Barry fucked me so hard that the next morning I had to sit in a hot bath to soothe myself then I remembered. Unquote. A Breitbart reporter brought Dunham's allegations under further scrutiny by trying to find any man attending Oberlin College at that time who would have matched Lena Dunham's description. They couldn't find one. If this is true, this calls into question as to whether Lena Dunham's Republican rapist ever existed at all, and if Barry 1's exoneration has arrived far too late. This is, this is really a mess, and the reason
I'm a child abuser, and I was probably raped. Why the fuck not? I'm a child abuser, I'm a child abuser, I'm a child abuser.
Yeah. But before I go further, I let you guys comment on this, the reason why I feel that this act, I wouldn't exactly call this rape, is because there's so many times in the middle of it where there's a lot of inconsistency. She describes that she went to go take a pee. That's weird, because I don't think she was in a bathroom at the time. And she describes the guy placing a couple fingers inside of her to plug her up, and at no point did she say, okay, I'm not going to take this guy back to my place and then fuck his brains out. And then there's moments where she said that he took the condom off without her noticing. I don't know if she's ever had that much sex with men, but I don't know how someone can not notice that someone's not wearing a condom and just pull a fast one over on her like that.
She did.
I wrote about this
as an unreliable
on a Voice for Men, as a this, because everything that you've just said is in that article, and it's the response that it got, but the number of inconsistencies in her story and the number of the ridiculous level of childishness in her story was just appalling, and how seriously people took it. And the result here, that this story, Lena Dunham's memoirs ruin a man's reputation. Do you realize how huge that is? That and the previous story, the one that we just talked about, the two stories give us that same thing that I said at the end of the first one, how important responsibility in journalism really is. Here you have all of this coverage of the story. We'll just take for granted that what she's saying is true. We'll just take for granted that this happened, and these people are terrible, and these universities aren't doing anything about this. And oh my God, hysteria. And what happens? What happens? We end up with a situation where the fraternities get attacked. Some guy who doesn't even have anything to do with the story gets tracked down and attacked. We end up with a bunch of changes in policy over this. We end up with people trying to push through all kinds of bullshit over this. This is why responsibility in journalism is absolutely vital. And I hate to attach this to Gamergate, but it is exactly what Gamergate is all about and what all of us should be fighting for.
Okay, but look at it. Like, we didn't learn our lesson in the 80s with the McMartin satanic ritual sexual abuse trials. We didn't learn our lesson, right? Because we never returned to baseline, right? We never returned to the attitudes we had before those things. We had after that, yes, we didn't have the pedophile hysteria that existed at the height of the witch hunts, right? But we went from, being a normal fucking society to being a society where men are kicked out of the kids section of bookstores when they're shopping for birthday presents for their grandkids, right? Because they might be a pedophile, right? This is just the way we are. And, one of the things that really fucking grinds my gears, as Peter Griffin would say, about the Lena Dunham thing, is even if you take her word for it, even if you take her word as gospel, it wasn't rape. How can it be rape when you're talking dirty to the man who's having sex with you? You're talking dirty and encouraging him. Whatever happened to fucking mens rea? Whatever happened to the guilty mind? Right? To a man being aware, right, that he's committing a crime. Right? If I'm having sex with somebody and they're talking dirty to me, egging me on, right? I'm not reading their mind and thinking, oh, they're only saying these things. Oh, mount me, yeah. Oh, your dick is so big, fuck me, right? I'm not thinking, oh, I'm reading their mind. And they're thinking, while they're saying that, they're thinking, I'm only saying this so that to convince myself that I'm consenting, right? That's not what's going on in my mind. What's going on in my mind is they want me to fuck them.
Well,
right? It's not even fucking rape. Like, this is the really fucked up thing. It's not even fucking rape. Even if you take every fucking word she said about it as gospel, it's not rape.
But
she didn't even shove any pebbles up his dick or anything.
Mayor Rez is hard. Proving Mayor Rez is hard.
I'm sorry. I'm really fucking choked about this one. I'm just like, I'm really fucking, because if there's one thing I can't stand about women is how dishonest they are about their own, what they want. Right?
Karen, I'm right with you on that. I titled the article that I wrote about this, Grow Up, Lena Dunham, because I was so pissed off at the time that I wrote it.
If you don't want something, say it. If you do want something, say it. Just go ahead and fucking say it. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen, right? Okay? The worst that's going to happen is what would have happened anyway if you didn't say it, right?
Nothing.
He's going to continue and against your will. Or, right, he's going to feel bad and then, oh my goodness, you're going to feel guilty. What? So fucking what?
Yeah, rejection's the worst thing you might experience. And
yeah,
you guys might not want to know what that feels like.
Oh my goodness, like a man would never understand what rejection feels like. Men never experience that because of their fucking patriarchal privilege, right? No man has ever been rejected by a woman, ever, right?
Well, Karen, we live in a patriarchy with male privilege. A man just points his finger at a woman and she must acquiesce to his sexual needs.
Women's bodies are public property, according to feminists. Like, just give me a fucking, like, this is really what fucking pisses me off. 40% of women, according to a study done not that long ago, right? 40% of women said they use token resistance. They say no when they mean yes. Because they want to put all the fucking responsibility for the act, for the decision, right, on the man. It wasn't my decision. It was his decision.
Okay. But we should move on from that epic rant.
Here, though, Karen. Here.
Okay. All right. I think I'll read the last two together, and then we can just say whatever we feel like on those two. All right. Students actually less likely to be victimized. That's short. A recent U.S. Department of Justice study states that the widely represented 1 in 5 rape statistic is actually closer to 0.03 in 5. The study goes on to state that non-students are actually 25% more likely to be victims of sexual assault than their college student counterparts. Information from the Bureau of Justice Statistics actually shows a decline in sexual assault cases across the board since 1997. However, the study says that 80% of these assaults go unreported, with the majority feeling that it was either a personal matter or that they feared reprisal. And that's concerning why they didn't report it. This is in stark contrast to the claims made by feminist groups claiming that invasive questioning or the fear of not being believed was the thing most likely to prevent assaults from being reported. And then the next one is feminists calling to ban Grand Theft Auto 5 in Canada. After a petition successfully had the game pulled from Target stores in Australia, Canadian feminists have gathered on a Change.org petition to ask for a countrywide ban of the game. The women responsible state that they feel the game promotes violence against women. Quote, "The images contained in GTA 5 normalize violence against women, the oppression of women, and the objectification and commercialization of women's bodies. GTA 5 normalizes extreme levels of violence toward marginalized populations along with providing a reward for these heinous acts. The scenes in this game are degrading, insensitive, and inappropriate. This degree of violence should not be condoned or practiced," unquote. Quote, again, playing a game littered with abject violence in third person has enough of an effect on the brains of children and young adults to include graphic sex acts that can be experienced from first-person perspective is unnecessary. This game provides sufficient exposure to negatively affect the cognitive and emotional experience of the player, essentially desensitizing them from the reality of these actions, unquote. Basically, their arguments amount to nothing. Games like GTA 5 are not for children, and even the company that creates the Grand Theft Auto franchise has never come close to suggesting that children and young adults be the consumers of these games. This isn't the first time that some group or another has come together to ban some form of media found to be too violent or offensive for consumption. In retrospect, these groups appear just as ridiculous as the women trying to ban GTA 5. What these people don't seem to understand is that banning a piece of media is practically an advertisement for that said work. People will consume that media because it is forbidden, and pursue it more aggressively than they would have otherwise. Simply put, we can expect sales for GTA 5 to go up in the next months with this rising controversy, and all thanks to the work of feminist killjoys bent on being moral crusaders. All right, discuss.
Okay.
Oh, Gemma! Not Karen, censor.
What?
Gemma. Go ahead.
I snuck in first.
No, you didn't actually. If you look at the chat, it was Gemma. Gemma did a stealth Gemma. Stealth Gemma.
She did
Or
not.
stealth British. So go
It's
ahead.
that is that PC Master Race
Okay,
skills
go
I got
ahead.
in there first.
Go ahead, Gemma.
No, I was just going to say it's quite funny, you know, when Gamergate tries to boycott companies that decry gamers are misogynistic, gamers are dead, then that's censorship. When feminists decide that they want a game banned because they believe it portrays women in a bad way, that's not censorship. That's not censorship at all. And the double standard honestly dumbfounds me. It really does. I mean, Arthur Chu today was saying that he managed to do like a complete 180, because he was saying before that we were trying to censor places like Kotaku and Polygon for their feminist views. Yet when feminists use exactly the same tactic, they are, they're saying they're taking their business elsewhere, and they're telling Target Australia what they're doing. And it's just the logic behind it. Them, like, it's okay for them, but it's not okay for us to do, because they are feminists and they are the right cause and they're doing it for just reasons. No, you're basically burning books. That's what you're doing. You don't like something. The game doesn't even involve murdering prostitutes if you don't want to. I walk right past them and go, "Hey, how you doing?" And that's it.
Come on, Mercedes.
Well, I think Gemma's got a great point. That was exactly what I was going to say, which is that, they conflate these issues. Is it possible to kill a prostitute in the game? Yes. Is it necessary to advance a stage? No. And so you have people who are not gamers who are who are making inferences about a game based on what they don't like, in terms of censorship. And I actually wrote 2 articles about this because I'm a contributor to a website called the Real Porn WikiLeaks, which is an adult industry type website. And we have a lot of opinion pieces. And my concern with this type of thing is we're also seeing a societal creep of censorship. If it's done from a postmodernist, quote unquote, progressive platform, it will start to bleed. And this is why Gamergate has been important to me and a lot of other people, which is it's not so much just the games. If censorship is allowed across the board, and we saw censorship of pornography this week in the UK, by creating legal mandates that can later be reinterpreted, we see, as Gemma said, eventually the burning of books.
Well, I just wanted to say that, yes, there is no situation in Grand Theft Auto 5 or in Hitman Absolution or in any of these games that actually require you to kill any of these female bystanders. That essentially the only people you are required to kill in these games are men. And so the very fact, for the sake of realism, they allow you to do it if you choose to. And often the people who choose to, and I went through this with my stepsons when they were 10, 11, 12, and they were still in that sort of antagonistic boy versus girl thing, right? With the James Bond video games. Oh, I just shot my girlfriend in the head, right? Because you could do it, right? And they were like, oh, cool, I can do it. And they didn't grow up to be wife beaters. The oldest is now 26, and he did not grow up to be an abusive person, right? The people who would do those things are generally immature people who are still in that antagonistic stage of sex versus sex, and then the boys tend to grow out of it, and they stop doing it. They stop seeing women in that way. And, this is the thing. The only people that you're required to kill in these games are men. So how misogynistic can these games be if the only people you're required by the game to kill in order to win are men?
It sounds like they're more misandrous than misogynistic in the final analysis.
Oh, but misandry don't reel.
Yeah, of course. And I drink male tears. Really?
Oh, yeah, no. Male tears are like that. They're delicious.
Oh, nice little protein stack. Oh, wait. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Good for your skin, too.
The beauty of male sexuality. Apparently, they also have hormones in them that make you feel good, too.
If you drink a lot of coffee, it also carries the properties over. Turns
Okay,
into a
but
nice
it's
little
not-
pick-me-up.
Hey, have you ever Googled a book? Google a book. It's called A Natural Harvest.
Okay.
Just Google it. Google it.
Bad, Karen. Bad.
Bleep your eyes.
Bad,
Bleep
Karen.
your eyes after you look it up.
All right.
I like
But yeah, and apparently also men have their hormones are actually calming to women. So there's another positive for male sexuality.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when
45 minutes later, women who had unprotected sex without a condom are feeling much happier and more relaxed and had a greater sense of well-being and connection with their partner than the ones who had sex with a condom.
I can concur to that. I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Mercedes.
I was just gonna say I could concur as somebody who has sex without a condom a lot and ingests a lot of male tears. I could concur that it keeps me in a good mood most of the time.
That's just
Yeah, we had a really beautiful conversation about.
It gives you a nice shiny coat too.
Well, it's literally life.
All right, traffic jam, people. Traffic jam. Don't want to
I
bring
was
up
just going
censor
to say,
down.
is Mercedes and I had a really nice conversation about that, about the beauty of semen and that it is a life force and how wonderful it is, and it's also not much of a conversation that's spoken of, but it is really beautiful and it's hot. And we were talking about that. So Yeah, on topic.
Yeah, that is definitely on topic. And why don't we end it on an on topic note? And also, maybe Jessica Valenti's problem is that she doesn't drink enough male tears.
Or bathe in them or anything. She doesn't. She probably avoids male tears in the Japanese sense as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, maybe we should have a whip round, eh?
Yeah,
she's too busy feasting upon the flesh of young babes.
Names on a postcard and send your sample in to this address.
I'm still
okay,
waiting
all right.
for
Well,
make
it is
that
sent
meme.
into chaos once again.
Her in that shirt. Her in that shirt. I bathe in male tears, and somebody to put Bukkake party at the bottom, right, with exclamation points. I'm still waiting for that to because that would be perfect, because male tears being a euphemism in some Asian cultures for semen.
Go ahead, Crystal.
Okay, so there's one last thing I was going to say. Is there part of the conversation in some parts of Tantra is talking about how in the tip of the penis is where there's a lot of love sourced. So that is why, I mean, one of the many reasons why it's so fantastic, but also that the feelings between the man and the woman, or men and men, etc., is because, I mean, that's part of it. There's just so much heart and so much love in the penis itself too. So that's one of the conversations. So.
That's a great thing to end on, and we really do need to go because it is at the hour.
Okay.
I want to thank everybody who took part in this radio show, in particular Mercedes. Thank you for coming on and chatting with us.
Oh yeah,
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
It was a lot of fun, and I'm glad you dug your elbows in, and because this crowd can get pretty rowdy. So,
No, it's great.
but yeah. It's been great having you guys. It was always great fun, and thank you to everybody who helps makes this possible, including James and our artists in the background. Koo, unpronounceable name, so I just call him Koo, and Mike.
Kukuruyo. Say it with me. Kukuruyo.
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 Kajube.
Kachube. Okay. All right, it's just not going to happen, Mike. I'm sorry. And Mike did the animation, and of course, thank you to A Voice for Men for giving us space on their radio show, for our radio show, and thank you to Reddit for giving us a sticky every week. That's very appreciated, and thank you to all of our other volunteers who make this possible, and thank you to our patrons. I'm going to do a shout out to Bend on Sex, whose birthday is today. He's also a Sagittarius, and I'm a Sagittarius, so that's awesome.
Oh, no wonder you're so insufferable, Allison.
Oh,
I didn't hear no right. Put down the duck.
Good night, everybody.